item about Iran that time in First World War. We know very well that before First World War, in oil, petroleum played very, very insignificant role in any war. In fact, American Civil War from 1861 through 1865 was the first major war in history of contemporary world, in which petroleum to a certain degree was used. But First World War was the first major international war that petroleum was used. And that petroleum came from Iran. Petroleum in Iran was discovered in 1901, and British took over. And in 1908, it was produced, and in 1914, during the First World War, oil was used. So from there on, oil, Iran's location, strategic location, and Iran's human resources that I made a reference to it, that how much when you look, you will see major portion of population of Iran in the western part of Iran. They have a lot of allegiance and a lot of historical ties with Arab civilization. If you go to eastern part, you will see a good number of Iranians. They have a lot of cultural, literary, and otherwise spiritual relations with Indian civilization. So Iran was strategically very important, and that's why people like Richard Pearl and other neocons, they call Iran the heart of the Middle East. But what do they mean by that? It's very important. Immediately after the Second World War, United States moved in direction of globalizing what they called that time Monroe Doctrine. That we are going to make every strategic regions of the world to become backyard of US imperialism. Monroe Doctrine only focused on Latin America. Latin America is backyard of US imperialism. And look at the irony now. Most successful revolutionary movements, including Bolivarian revolution in Venezuela, in Ecuador, is happening in backyard of US imperialism. But Latin America was the only one that was considered backyard of US. Now, after the Second World War, the ruling elites in the United States, they decided that they are going to globalize the Monroe Doctrine. That was 1945, 46, before outbreak of Cold War. Then when Cold War started in 1947, gradually United States faced with three important challenges in the world. Then these challenges made the US to postpone their program. Their program was what? Their project. Their world project was to monopolize the world by globalizing Monroe Doctrine, to create US hegemony by simply globalizing Monroe Doctrine. But in 1950, especially after Soviet Union successfully detonated tested their first atomic bomb, United States postponed that program, that project. Remember, project is what? To globalize Monroe Doctrine, create every strategic region in the world to become part of US backyard. That was the project. Monroe Doctrine, to globalize. So they faced with three important challenges, so they postponed it. The first challenge was Soviet Union. Soviet Union emerged as a major superpower. So United States had a lot of limitations, especially in Eastern Europe and portion of Africa and the Middle East. The second challenge was rise of social democratic workers' movement in Europe, from Sweden all the way down to Italy. So you had social democratic forces that they were challenging the system from within. So the United States was facing not only Soviet Union worldwide, but in European continent, the United States was facing with the rise of social democratic workers movement, which reached its apex in 1968 revolutions in France and many, many European countries. Surely both of them were defeated. But the third challenge was very interesting. The United States was not only facing Soviet Union, the United States was not only facing socialist workers, social democratic forces, but the United States was facing national liberation movement throughout Africa and Asia. So for those three challenges, US completely postponed its program. So let's see what happened in 1991. I know I have a very short video translator. In 1991, what do we see? We see collapse of Soviet Union as a first challenge. Castration of socialist workers movement in Europe successfully. I mean, imagine today Gordon Brown and Tony Blair are what? In fact, children of that castration. You know, social democratic forces were completely crushed in Europe, not simply by military, by diplomatic and economic and cultural means, by CIA. It has fantastic history. I mean, when you read how they penetrated through mafia in Great Britain, and through mafia in Italy, they overthrew and they completely almost castrated the Communist Party of Italy, which was the largest at that time in the world after Soviet Union and China. And national liberation movements, one after another, well, they were crushed, they were completely wiped out. So by 1991, the United States has no challenge facing. So the United States then embarked on what? Monroe Doctrine to be globalized. The first strategic region was Middle East. Let us take over Middle East and use Middle East as cooling station to dominate other parts of the world. It's very important if you want to dictate your policies to European countries as US, you have to have Middle East in order to dictate your policies. Once you dictate your policies to your allies in Europe, then the next move will be what? Either to isolate Russia, or if Russia resists, try to dismember Russia as the Soviet Union. And in the final, the United States dismembered the Soviet Union. And in the final analysis, world domination after Middle East, after Europe, then contained China and achieve world project of US imperialism, which is the domination of the world. Are they successful? Is the ruling elites in the United States has been successful? So far, all the evidence show that the United States is not succeeding in this project. The United States is in quagmire in Iraq and Afghanistan, politically, militarily even, economically. And the United States is being challenged on the one hand by Russia in Georgia, on the other hand by China, at least in Tibet and Taiwan. Dismemberment of China, dismemberment of Russia do not seem to be probability in the future by the US. So the United States is in crisis. A great number of political scientists, they say that the United States, as head of world system of capital, is facing one crisis, and that is financial crisis. No, the United States is facing 4 crises. More important than financial crisis is the crisis of U.S. imperialism itself. It's being challenged today throughout the world. U.S. Is no longer the same United States that was 10 years ago. It's being effectively challenged by people all over the world, and 2 strategies that U.S. used in the last 50 years, those 2 strategies have been exposed. Let me make this statement about these 2 strategies, and then I will make my comment about whether Iran is going to be the next target. And 2 strategies in the US ruling elites. We have 2 camps, 2 important factions, if you like to call them factions. 2 camps. One camp is called internationalist liberals, or liberal internationalists. This liberal internationalist bloc or camp is probably articulated by Brzezinski. Zbigniew Brzezinski is spiritual leader of this line. This line believes in what they call Washington consensus. That means United States can do a lot in this world by negotiating. Lee Hamilton, Jim Baker, all of them are following this line. This line has succeeded today. The other line, which advocated what? Militarism. Military is the best way to promote American interests on behalf of American World Project. That line, that camp has lost. Obama is representing the line of negotiation. Negotiators, or those that they believe in multilateralism, not unilateralism, has succeeded in this recent election. So Obama is not byproduct of metaphysical forces. Obama is byproduct of a tremendous, huge contradiction and struggle between these 2 camps. Camp that believe that you can change the world by resorting to American militarism, and the other camp that believes that you can achieve American aims, American interests by simply negotiating diplomacy and multilateralism. Now, Obama is going to negotiate with Iran. So probability of war is almost, we should be more inclined towards science, almost relatively impossible, or has reached to 0. The United States, even now, if they are not negotiating behind the curtains, behind the closed doors, Obama will negotiate with Iran. Obama will negotiate with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Obama will negotiate with Syria in Damascus, with Syrian leaders. And in fact, the only area Obama is going to have to confront us, because we will put pressure on him, is Pakistan and Afghanistan. Obama, unlike his policy toward Iran, Syria, has not given us any idea to make us to be convinced that he will not invade Pakistan. I have been always of the opinion that before anything happened to Iran, I think Pakistan may disintegrate. There are a lot of factors that you can sit down and surmise that Pakistan is next target rather than Iran. Obama and and then his followers, they believe that through Pakistan they can control Afghanistan, and through Iran they can control Iraq. So the question is, contradiction will not be resolved whether Obama is in power or John McCain. What do I mean by contradiction? Contradiction is that US empire would like to bring democracy to Iran, to Iraq, to Palestine, to all these countries. And the people of these countries, they want national sovereignty. They are in contradiction. Democracy is in, even if you accept that yes, George Bush and Obama, they want to spread democracy, that democracy is in conflict with national sovereignty. People of those areas, people of Middle East, at this point, they want to have national sovereignty. People of Afghanistan, they want United States to pull back and move out, get out of Afghanistan. They want national sovereignty. You and I, we can disagree with their ideology, with their motivation, but all the countries in the Middle East, they don't want American democracy. Intellectuals, in fact, in those countries, they believe that democracy is not a commodity to export. Democracy is a process, comes from within societies. Without national sovereignty, you show me one country in the world that they have democracy without national sovereignty. Impossible. All the colonies of Great Britain, France, throughout the 19th century, they had democracy. They didn't have national sovereignty. It's impossible to have any country in which you will have democracy, secularism, and modernity. All those three important processes in history, democracy, modernity, and secularism, all three processes that they are linked, their material foundation is national sovereignty. Without national sovereignty, it is impossible to have democracy. Without democracy and national sovereignty, it's impossible to have social justice. So from Lenin all the way to Noam Chomsky, belonging to different factions of progressive forces, all of them, they agree on this issue, that the number one ingredient for democracy in any country, any form of democracy you want, is your national sovereignty. So United States is confronting with this huge contradiction. They want to impose democracy. People of the area, they want national sovereignty. So Iran is not the next target, because already the ruling elites in Iran are somehow negotiating with the US, maybe behind curtains, maybe inside the closed doors, about Iraq. So I think one of our speakers, it was Tariq Ali, last night he mentioned, 100% it's accurate, that Iran will be used by US to control Iraq, and Pakistan will be used to control Afghanistan. Again, the same. Permanent war will be with us. Permanent war, because that is their project. In their world project, permanent war is at the top of the agenda of not only newcomers, but other factions of ruling elites. As I mentioned about international liberals or liberal internationals, remember the other faction which they lost are a combination of newcomers and conservative realists. Conservative realists are represented by Henry Kissinger. So they lost. Obama is in power. Obama will make negotiation with Iran, will pull out of Iraq, but will invade Afghanistan and Pakistan. I think I finished.
United States will not invade Iran. But clearly one of the forces that's pressuring for the invasion of Iran is Israel and the neocons in Israel and in Washington. What do you foresee? I cannot imagine those forces sitting back and allowing the scenario that you and Tariq Ali described and just letting it happen. They seem determined to stimulate an invasion either by the United States directly or starting it themselves and forcing the United States in behind them.
Well, wonderful point. I attend some conferences in my classrooms. Students from Middle East, from United States, they raise this question about how about, they say, how about Israel? That's one question. Let me answer your question, if I can, by explaining that why I believe that Iran is not next target. Neocons and other elements of American ruling elites, in order for them to invade a country, they always want to have consensus. Once they reach consensus, they invade. On Iraq, the ruling elites, neocons, imposing their wish on a good number of other Republicans that they were not necessarily neocons, they were all online, in other words. They believed they had consensus to invade Iraq. What was their consensus? We invade Iraq because of weapons of mass destruction. They were successful in making sure that 85% of Americans, that they even were against the war. They believed that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. For the year 2004, 2005, 2006, maybe even to be accurate, I would say up to the end of the year 2005, neocons had some idea that they would reach a consensus about Iran. They didn't. They had disagreements, not about invading or not invading. They were in favor of invading, but they didn't know what to say to the masses. So on Iraq, they succeeded. On Iran, they failed within themselves. This is the way I see that there is no consensus at this point within ruling elites in the United States to invade Iran. Not because of Iranian conditions, or Iranian will resist, or Iran will be 4 times bigger than Iraq. No, those are very secondary. Most important factor was consensus was not achieved within the ruling elites, but especially neocons, about Iran. About Palestine and Israel, you see, if you pick up Arab intellectuals, Iranian intellectuals, Pakistani intellectuals, they have a major, not conflict, but disagreement. And that disagreement is who decides the policies. Policies of Israeli government is decided by US ruling elites or no. Israelis influence US ruling elites. Fair argument, both sides. I belong to the faction, I belong to the camp that strongly I believe that Israel will never do anything unless White House orders. Impossible for Israeli government, Israeli elites, Israeli intellectuals that they are pro-establishment or Zionist to influence the United States. The ruling elites in the United States, they decide. Not Great Britain, not Israel. In fact, some of our Iranian intellectuals, they say, oh no, Great Britain decides what Washington should do. I think yes, Great Britain did it, but at the end of 19th century, what they call it, La Belle Époque, the armed peace period. During that period which led to First World War, yes, Great Britain was responsible. But from there on, Great Britain started declining as a major empire and became very much quote-unquote, partner of the United States. So Israel is creation of US. I think if United States decides that the Palestinians should have their own state, I think Israelis will go along. If otherwise they decide that there should be one Palestine, multi-ethnic, multinational, Israelis will go with it. Surely at the beginning there will be some resistance, but they will go. I believe that Israelis do not decide American foreign policy in Africa and Latin America. They don't decide American foreign policy in the Middle East. American ruling elites, they decide their policies, and Israel is a very reliable and strong, faithful ally of US in the Middle East. And I will not be surprised, mark my word, I will not be surprised that if US in the next decade or next 5 years to drop Israel and pick up Iran as most reliable agent of United States in that part of the world.
I have actually two questions, but the answer might be related as what I'm asking. Why do you think, what was the cause of non-militarism coup d'etats to be transformed to militarism after 1973? It was part of like organized, like globalization, what was that doing or not? And if it was or not, what do you think Obama is going to do? Is it going to create an interim in that globalizing monitoring, or is it actually existing?
Yeah, okay. I think your question has two parts, right? The first part is that
What was the question?
okay, that's why United States never resorted to military actions from 1953 all the way to 73, but was successful in overthrowing the regimes. Why? Because that time US as an imperial power, as an imperialist power, had a lot of advantages, prestige, and very, very important position in the world. United States culturally, economically, politically, was very, very artistically, was very strong. Today, the United States has lost each one of those advantages. US prestige, US importance is no longer the same that US enjoyed not only in so-called first world of Europe, but even in African countries, in Middle Eastern countries. United States enjoyed certain prestige among very important part of the population. I don't know where you were, maybe you were not born in 1963 when John F. Kennedy died. It was not only some African Americans that they collapsed and became unconscious because they loved him. But in Iran, in Egypt, there were tremendous uproar about his assassination. In other words, sympathy for Kennedy family never disappeared. If you go to Iran today, still you will see a lot of Iranian Persian rugs are with Kennedy's picture. Now, what happened now is completely reversed. Today, no American president can walk in the streets of Paris. And I'm not talking about the streets of Tehran or Beirut, but they cannot. In fact, Rumsfeld, I don't know if one of you know, Rumsfeld 3 months ago, by accident, he went to Paris and then entered to a hotel. He couldn't come out of the hotel because some people, they saw Rumsfeld and they reported the police precinct, and they had a warrant to arrest him. So he had to stay inside the hotel, and then he was funneled into American embassy. He cannot go to Belgium. Even that's very far, far away when we are talking about Kennedy. In the year 1996, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and their daughter Chelsea, they went to India for a visit, for a trip to see Taj Mahal. 500,000 Indians came to welcome them. Now, would you even Obama will not be able to achieve it, has to give a lot of concessions in order to achieve what Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton did. So United States prestige, that's what it's called, crisis of US imperialism. United States imperialism has lost its legitimacy. I don't mean US imperialism never was popular, but had legitimacy. They thought that United States can do something. So they split. They supported US Saudi. Like inside Iran, there were some group of people, Iranians, that they supported US about the coup. But now, that has completely evaporated. So United States can only invade a country and occupy that country and then bring regime change. Otherwise, they cannot do through military coup. Impossible. They have lost the minimum amount of prestige and popular basis that as an imperial power they have. They don't have it now anymore. Your second question that was related to this one was that what Obama will. That is what I believe, that Obama represents the internationalist liberals. They believe in negotiations. They will negotiate. They will negotiate with Iran, with Syria.
But is it going to interrupt that globalizing of the Monroe Doctrine, or is
I think for a short period, you see these two strategies. One was through negotiation to enhance U.S. interest, U.S. project. Another one was through military. Both of them have been discredited. So U.S. ruling elites have to give a lot of concessions in order to achieve that position so that they can again embark on advancing their Monroe Doctrine theory, globalization of Monroe.
In your analysis, except British imperialism, you excluded European influence totally. Despite NATO, they don't have that much power. But US cannot decide what to invade and what not to invade without European consent. Because Europe depends far more on those resources you have mentioned in that. So it is not because of the policy is that we use Iran. I personally think, as a student of political science, despite the decline of European imperialism still plays a very important role. And no matter what happens, ultimately they are on the side of Western racist imperialism.
That's very true. So I believe that Europe is decidedly, clearly divided into camps. I call it social Europe and capital Europe. Capital Europe is the ruling elites, most of them. They are somehow, in fact, they welcome still American hegemony, American domination, American capital. Domination of capital. That's capital Europe. But then you have social Europe. Social Europe, as you know, like national liberation movements, like Soviet Union, they had their own setbacks. Now they are coming back. So I agree with you that it would be wrong for me to say that US imperialism is the only one. No, I would say it's collective imperialism. It's unlike before. You have United States, EU, which doesn't really exist. EU is part of the United States, and Japan. So I believe that imperialism today is a collective imperialism. It has three heads, but who is on the top?